Good morning everybody, and welcome back to This Week in Magic Online Finance. Thank you so much for joining me yet again, and as always we're going to start off with the news. The biggest story of this week, well, how can it be anything other than the most seismic standard bans of the year? That's right, Oko, gone. Once Upon a Time, gone. Veil of Summer, you'd better believe that one's gone too. WotC didn't want the Oko deck to even have a prayer of surviving this week's bannings, so they gave their marquee Planeswalker the boot along with several of his BFFs. Now, if you thought that these cards would drop in price on MTGO after being banned, well, you'd be wrong. Veil of Summer, remember, had already tanked thanks to the fact that it was banned in Pioneer the week before, and it's actually gone up in price about a ticket since then. If you bought in before the standard ban, you're probably feeling pretty good about Veil of Summer right now. As for Once Upon a Time, that card has also gone up about a ticket since the banning. Once Upon a Time did actually drop 4 tickets from 9 down to about 5 right after getting the axe, but it popped back up again almost immediately. Right now, Once Upon a Time has crested the 10 ticket mark again, and it's still trending slowly upward. Unless Once Upon a Time is banned in Pioneer, I expect it to end up back around the 15 ticket mark again soon. Of course, the most important card to be banned this week was Oko, Thief of Crowns. Oko was about 45 tickets before getting the axe, and it dropped as low as 35 immediately after the announcement dropped on the WotC website. That discount lasted for less than a day. By Monday afternoon, Oko was back up above the 50 ticket mark. Right now, Oko is about 56 tickets, which puts it a full 11 tickets higher than before it was banned in Standard. So, what's going on here? Well, as you know by now, Standard doesn't really drive the market much on MTGO. Prices mostly go up and down based on Modern and Pioneer, and both of those formats have Oko and Once Upon a Time as playable, legal staples. Once both of those cards survived the Pioneer banning on Monday afternoon, it was game on, especially since Oko has been showing up more and more in those two formats. Now, in paper Magic, I'm a little more skeptical of Oko's post-ban rise, because, standard playability matters a whole lot more in paper. But on MTGO, I see no reason why being banned in Standard should affect Oko's future price tag at all. Oko will still probably get banned in Modern or Pioneer at some point if it ends up being too good for those formats, but until that happens, the sky is the limit for this Planeswalker. Oko has been over 80 tickets before and he can get there again, so I'm not selling any of my copies. Let's move on now to gaining ground, where I actually do have a Standard card to talk about this week that gained ground due to play in Standard. It's Korvold Fakehurst King, which jumped 4 tickets from 8 up to 12. And even though Standard playability rarely moves the needle all that much on MTGO, Korvold might prove the exception. This card sees play in Standard's hot new Jund food deck, and the supply on MTGO is incredibly low due to the fact that Korvold is in a Brawl precon. That means it's only available on here via treasure chests. And we've seen cards rise in price because of that in the past. Remember, Nexus of Fate, it spent a decent portion of 2018 in the 30 to 40 ticket range, and even in 2019, it spent a lot of time over the 20 ticket mark. That means that Korvold may double up if Jund Food takes off, and if you're a believer in that deck, I'd grab a set of Korvolds now. Let's move on to Pioneer now, where the card that gained the most ground was Field of the Dead, surging 9 tickets from 20 up to 29. Core Set 2020 is just full of rares like this that have tons of room to grow because nobody really drafted this set on MTGO. Also, the Bant Field of the Dead decks are continuing to perform really well in Magic's newest Eternal format. 29 tickets might seem like a high price for such a recent non-mythic rare, but its price chart is still pointing straight at the ceiling, and I don't see why Field of the Dead will stop here as long as the deck continues to do well. There's a really solid chance this thing passes the 40 ticket mark by late next week, and if you want to play this deck, you should pick up your field soon. Also up in Pioneer is another Core Set 2020 card, Legion's End, which jumped 5 tickets from 3 up to 8. Legion's End's price chart is still pointing at the ceiling, and heck, it may actually be time to start cracking Core Set 2020 packs, right? Now, the reason for this card's gain is Mono Black Aggro's big win at the Star City Games Invitational last weekend. Mono Black Aggro is good, it's reasonably cheap, and it's a total blast to play. Mono Black Aggro pieces are selling well on both MTGO and in paper right now, and those gains should continue through next week, especially since WotC said they are unlikely to ban anything in Pioneer this week either. So again, if you want to build this deck and you need Legion's End, I would pick them up soon. Over in Modern, the card that gained the most ground this week was Plague Engineer, which surged 8 tickets from 12 back up to 20. This card seesawed around a lot this fall, dipping from 30 down to 15, then back up to 30, then back down to 12, and now it's headed back up toward 30 again. I expect Plague Engineer will remain over the 20 ticket mark for a while now, considering how much more play it's seeing in the current Modern metagame. And this also bodes well for the Modern Index as a whole. I'm still not seeing the signs of a total and complete market rebound, and I expect it'll still be scattershot through the holiday season, but cards like Force of Negation, Mishra's Bauble, and Icefang Coatl were also up in price this week. So if you are looking to buy into Modern, I'd at least begin starting your shopping trip around now. Let's move on now to our biggest losers, where in Pioneer it was Vivien Arcbow Ranger dropping 15 tickets from 72 down to 58. And look, Vivien was just never going to stay above the 60 ticket mark for long, and a lot of that price spike was due to people buying copies like mad so they could test for the SCG Invitational. Now that the Invitational is over, the price is starting to settle back down. Don't get me wrong, Vivien is still a great card in Pioneer, and the best version of one of the best decks in the format still runs several copies of this Core Set 2020 Planeswalker. But there's just no way she's worth twice as much as, say, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. Vivien's price tag is still on a downward trajectory, and I expect she'll be closer to 40 by this time next week. Over in Modern, Wrenn and Six was the biggest loser by far this week. After being banned in Legacy last Monday, Wrenn and Six crashed from 87 tickets all the way down to 29. That is a loss of 58 tickets. 58 tickets! There are only a handful of cards on MTGO that are even worth 58 tickets total. Now, I wish I had a chance to tell you to buy in at that 29 ticket mark because, of course, Wrenn and Six began to rebound immediately. The card has regained almost 20 tickets in value since then, and Wrenn and Six is currently up to 47 tickets and rising. That's still a pretty cheap price for a card that was as high as 150 tickets back in September, especially because this powerful Planeswalker is still legal in Modern. Honestly, I fully expect Wrenn and Six to be next week's biggest Modern gainer, and I expect it'll be back over the 60 ticket mark at some point soon. So if you've been holding off on buying Wrenn and Six, I would buy in soon. Let's move on now to our sneak of the week, and this week's sneak is Mutavault, a card that has done nothing but rise in price ever since Pioneer was announced. Mutavault was a 2-ticket rare before then, but it finally crested the 15-ticket mark earlier this week. Mutavault is one of the key cards in Mono Black Aggro, the Pioneer deck that took down the SCG Invitational, but it also sees play in Pioneer decks as diverse as Azorius Control and Gruul Midrange. With such a variety of interesting homes in Pioneer, I'd be shocked if Mutavault doesn't keep rising in price. At some point, this card will break the 20 ticket mark, and it probably won't look back until it's reprinted, so if you've been holding off on getting these, I'd look to pick them up soon as well. As always, we're going to end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader sales data over the past 7 days, and this gives us a really good idea of which cards are the most popular on Magic Online right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. Looking at overall sales by volume, it was utterly shocking to me how well Once Upon a Time sold this week. It is quite unusual for a rare to beat out any of the top multi-format uncommons by this metric, but Once Upon a Time didn't just beat out those this week, it also beat out 2 of the 5 basic lands, which are almost always the top sellers of every week, and I just ignore them because, you know, they're basic lands. Now granted, a lot of these sales of Once Upon a Time probably happened when the card was down in the 4 to 5 ticket range right after being banned in Standard, but I still predict future rebounds for Once Upon a Time. It is a key card in Pioneer, and if it isn't banned soon, it's going to end up back up around the 15 ticket mark again before too long. In terms of overall sales by price, you probably won't be all that shocked to know that the top 4 cards of this week in order were Oko, and then Teferi, and then Wrenn and Six, and then Once Upon a Time. We've talked quite a bit about 3 of these cards already, so let's talk a bit about the 4th card, Teferi. After surging as high as 80 tickets in late October and dropping as low as 50 in mid-November, the Planeswalker is now pretty steady at the 65 ticket mark. If Teferi starts seeing more play in Modern, or especially in Pioneer, I would be shocked if it rallies again at some point soon. I'm always a bit skeptical about buying expensive cards right before the holidays, when all prices tend to dip a bit, but the underlying metrics for Teferi are pretty solid here. I'm probably staying away myself, but if you're in the market for Teferis, well, there are worse gambles to make. And that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.